Okay, Unit 5, Lesson 3, and this is where we really get into the tougher part of polynomials. So this lesson has us divide polynomials. So we're going to use long division and synthetic division. Long division is what I teach first. It is more difficult. It is not as common later on. Synthetic division is going to be more useful to us later on, but I still want to teach you long division. So the way we set up long division, and I hope I give myself enough room here, but we take the polynomial that's being divided and we write that on the outside, okay? So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to write x squared plus 3x plus 2. And on the inside, what I'm dividing by, 2x to the fourth plus 3x to the third. And then what we notice here, there's no x squared term, okay? So what I'm going to do, since it jumps from x to the third to x to the first, I'm going to put in the term 0x squared as a placeholder. That is important because it's going to help us do some operations later on. So it's very important in this lesson, at least in these first two examples, that when I'm writing something and explaining it, I would suggest while you're writing out kind of what I'm doing, pause so you can write it and then listen to what I'm saying, because that's a good strategy, because sometimes I talk while I'm writing and I might not explain it well enough for you to be able to write and listen at the same time. So that's an important skill to have, is be able to pause it and come back once you have it written so you can kind of understand why I wrote it. So the way we do this, we always use the first term in the polynomial we're dividing when we think about this. So we think about the first terms. X squared times what gives me 2x to the fourth? I think of x squared as 1x squared. So I know 1 times 2 would give me 2. Okay? Then x squared times what would give me x to the fourth? X squared times x squared would give me x to the fourth. So I'm asking myself, what times this term gives me this term? That's the first step. Missed my squared there. So then what you do is you take this 2x squared and you multiply it by every term in your divisor, the thing you're dividing by. So 2x squared times 1x squared is 2x to the fourth. I'm just going to write it underneath. 2x squared times 3x. 6x to the third. 2x squared times 2, 4x squared. I'm going to put that in parentheses, and I am going to, this is very, very important, I am going to subtract it. Oh, I'll draw a better line. Going to subtract it. So I take that first term, distribute it, and subtract that entire polynomial. And that's why we learned add, subtract, multiply last time. Helps us with this. So we subtract. So 2x to the fourth minus 2x to the fourth is 0. That's what we want. 3x to the third minus 6x to the third is negative 3x to the third. 0x squared minus 4x squared is negative 4x squared. And then I drop down my last two terms, okay? And then the process starts over again. 1x squared times what would give me negative 3x to the third? So the first thing I ask myself, what times 1 gives me negative 3? Negative 3. What times x squared would give me x to the third? That would be x. X times x squared is x to the third. So then I go through my steps of distributing 3x through my polynomial. negative 3x times 1x squared is negative 3x to the third. So if you're doing this right, the first term by this next term we write should always be able to cancel, basically. Negative 3x times 3x is negative 9x squared. And then negative 3x times 2 is negative 6x. And the big thing here, remember, we are subtracting this. So if you want, you could go through, and I'll use blue to illustrate this, but you could go through and change all the signs. But you just got to remember that it's subtracting. So these become 0. Negative 4 plus 9. This is 5x squared. 5 plus 6 is 11. So this is 11x, and then I drop down negative 1. So we're getting towards the end here. Last one, 1x squared times what gives me 5x squared? 1 times what gives me 5? Well, 1 times 5 gives me 5. And then x squared times what gives me x squared? Really just 1. So that, I don't need a variable on that, it's just 5, because 5 times x squared is 5x squared. So I do my last subtraction here. This is 5x squared. 5 times 3x is 15x. 5 times 2 is 10. And I subtract. So these become 0. I'm left with negative 4x minus 11. That is what we call our remainder. So we need to know how to write this as a quotient, as a result. So I'm going to write that in green on the left here. So our quotient is going to be this. 2x squared minus 3x plus 5. Plus our remainder, negative 4x minus 11 over what we originally divided by. So that was about 7 minutes and 30 seconds dedicated to just one problem, explaining one type of problem. So I will get you practice with that. This would be one where I'd really suggest you do the paper and pencil practice just to get that concept down. I'm going to show you synthetic division, and that's going to feel a lot better. So let me show you one with synthetic division. So the way we set up synthetic division is we have a factor, okay? X minus 3. So it's always in this form, x minus 3 or x plus 1. It's got to be a linear term, okay? And it's got to have, x minus x plus. So the way we set this up, since this is x minus 3, I'm going to use 3 as my number in this process. And there's a reason for this. I'm going to set up this big L, okay? And this is mostly for visual, just to help us keep track of things. And I write just the coefficients in order, okay? So I start with, on the inside, to the right of 3. I write my coefficients in order. Negative 1, 4, skips a degree, so I put 0, and then 9. So this is x to the third, x squared, x, and our constant. So this process, the math, really is, I think, easy to understand. It's just us being able to write it at the end, the quotient, the result. So the way we do this, basically drop, multiply, add. Okay, so we drop negative 1. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. So drop, multiply, and then we add. So 4 plus negative 3 is 1. And then we repeat the steps. 3 times 1 is 3. 0 plus 3 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus 9 is 18. So that is finished in a sense. What we've got to recognize is our last number here is the remainder. Okay, the last number is our remainder. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the way I write this as a polynomial, it's going to be one less degree than the polynomial we divided. So this is negative x squared plus x plus 1x plus 3 plus 18 over our divisor, the thing we were dividing by, 18 over x minus 3. So that's how we write our result. That's an important thing, okay? It's a very important thing. So what I would suggest, I'm probably going to make another video for this, for the remainder theorem, because this is big. This is a big thing. I might split this lesson up into 2 pieces. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to finish the video with showing you one more. If you want to try this one on your own, pause me, shut me up, and work on it, and then I'll show you what I've got. So to go through this one pretty quick, to set it up, it's really the same, except since it's x plus 1, I'm going to use negative 1, and then I'm going to write out my coefficients. 3, negative 2, positive 2, and negative 5. Drop, multiply, add. Drop the 3, multiply negative 1 times 3 to get negative 3. This becomes negative 5. This becomes 5, 7, negative 7, negative 12. So, to write my quotient, I'll do it in blue. It's going to be 3x squared down 1 degree minus 5x plus 7. And then you can decide either way. You can do plus negative 12 or you can do minus 12. I'm just going to do plus negative 12. Plus negative 12 over that x plus 1. So I showed you only one long division. Kind of gives you a hint of long division's not going to be as emphasized in the future. Synthetic division is really what we're going to lean on for a lot of problems in the future. So what I'd have you do now is do some sort of practice and then come back for the remainder theorem. All right, this lesson, if this takes you more than one day, that's okay, because this week I'm finished. I'm going to stop assigning stuff at the end of this week, and I'm going to use next week to help you guys catch up. If you're ahead or if you're on pace, guess what? Next week's going to be easy for you. You're going to have kind of free reign over what you want to do. You can work ahead, you can have a study hall, things like that. But if you are not caught up, I am going to get you caught up. And if it takes me all week, that's fine. But if you're behind right now, you've got to be reaching out and doing what you can to get caught up, because the end of the semester is less than 2 weeks away. And we are not going to, I know it's a tough time, but we are not going to extend a lot of things past the semester. So just keep that in mind. Any work you don't get into me by the 21st, I'm not going to count it. So just be open with communication for catching up, all right? So you can move on to some practice on this, and I will give you further instructions.